Cami Kepke from Flames Nation. You can find her on Afterburner as well. Always a pleasure to have you on the show, Cami. And when we had you on last, it was early January, and we were talking about this Flames team that was outperforming expectations and staying in the fight. And it was like, well, they can't score. Can they stay in the mix? Well, flash forward 3 more months. They've stayed in the mix. So let me just start with maybe a blanket of like, how have they done it? How is this Flames team, when, again, everyone was kind of waiting for him to fall, how have they stayed afloat?
I remember when we did that hit a little while ago, you were talking about like them scoring all these goals and exceeding expectations. It was like, goals where? Here, by the grace of Dustin Wolf, frankly, and a bit of a resurgence from Jonathan Huberdeau. But Calgary is not in a place to rest on their laurels still. They're coming off their first extended road trip of the season where they've gone better than 500. So it's going to be a fight to the end. The odds are not in their favor for playoffs, but it's like a bad situationship with the Calgary Flames, where just when you think you're out, they're going to come back and win 3 games. And you just can't count them out at any point.
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, a team that's played as scrappy as the Flames have, how much, like, if you were to stack a few things together in terms of the story and how they've gotten here, what percentage would you owe to Dustin Wolf and his play in net?
I'd say, honestly, it has to be more than 2/3. This is a team that is second last in the league in goals scored. Dustin Wolf is holding them in some very low scoring, almost Daryl Sutter style hockey games where it's rare for them to get more than 3 goals in a night. And even if his numbers haven't been amazing over the last 5 games or so, we've seen him be able to bounce back. He was yanked for the first time against the Toronto Maple Leafs, and he came back against the New Jersey Devils and won in a game where he was facing a lot of high danger scoring chances. I talked sometimes about how some scores flatter the Flames. Recently, they lost to the Avs 4-2, and that was very nice for the Flames. They looked so much worse than 4-2, but Dustin Wolf came out against New Jersey and had an 898 save percentage. He was so much better than that. So the numbers aren't always reflective of how he plays, and responsible for 2/3 of the Flames' success so far this season, I'd say.
Do you have an update for us on Mackenzie Weegar? Obviously misses Saturday's game, but huge part of, if there's going to be any offense coming, and if it's going to be coming from the back end, he's going to be one of those guys providing it. What's his status moving forward?
Yep, he's been huge for them this year, sitting 3rd on the team in points right now, leading all the defensemen. No update from me at this point, but the Flames are skating today, so there should be an update at that point, but expected to play on Tuesday. It doesn't seem like it's going to be anything long-term like what Michael Backlund is dealing with.
Got it. And Joel Farabee also missed Saturday's game with an illness, but figured that was an appropriate time to check in as well on just kind of the early returns, if there are any to speak of the Frost and Farabee acquisitions. Like, they brought those guys in to try and add some more goals, but through basically a quarter of a season to this point, 18 and 19 games they've played, they've combined for just 5. What have you seen from those guys? How long do you think it's taken them to get comfortable? And is there more on the horizon for them? Are they just starting to scratch the surface?
Well, I think the Flames certainly are hoping to see more from both of those players going forward. Maybe they've found some chemistry with their teammates. They've found where they slot into this lineup, but the numbers really haven't been there yet. And there has been some conversation away from the ice about whether they need some time to kind of shake the way things were for them in Philadelphia. Is that something that you can snap out of very quickly when you don't know what your worth is to a team? So certainly hoping for more down the stretch. The returns certainly have not been there yet. This is a team that is still starved for goals, and this doesn't look like it's been the answer early on, but no one's ready to write this trade off just yet.
This one may be a bit more of a bigger picture question, but I mean, coming into the year, I think there was a lot of outside noise about hey, the Flames going to pull shoot at some point and keep trading off assets. And at least from, Frank's conversations with Craig Conroy and everything that actually came from the Flames, it was like, whoa, we're not pulling shoot on this season. We're not going into some big, long rebuild. But as we eventually head into this next offseason, and now we've seen what Dustin Wolf can do at the NHL level, like having a goalie like that, if you want to tag him as generational or whatever, it basically will prevent you from ever bottoming out and being like a bottom 5 team in the league. So do you think that's going to change a little bit, maybe how aggressive this front office could be? Could it speed up the timeline of, again, it was never a rebuild, but speed up how quickly they maybe want to get aggressive and adding some bigger pieces back to this roster?
Well, they've got a whole pile of RFAs, so it will be very interesting to see what they do in this offseason. They certainly could get dragged into the playoffs, and we'd see how long they could maybe last there. Dustin Wolf was talking over the weekend about how they feel written off, they feel dogged, and they think they could make some noise if they get there. Maybe a little reminiscent of another rookie goalie in Jordan Binnington, who was able to drag his team into some pretty terrific hockey. But the main thing for the Flames would be if they do want to get aggressive following this season, you got to get some more scoring in there. It doesn't look like the answer is in the AHL right now, especially for forwards. You get the feeling looking at this D-core that there's some players who are maybe placeholders for a Zane Parekh, a Hunter Brustevich maybe down the line, but it will be all about adding offense for this team going forward if they want to make some noise in the West.
So we've talked about some of the, impressive storylines so far this season, Wolf, and then you mentioned Jonathan Huberdeau's bounce back. Curious how you would classify this season from Blake Coleman's perspective, because last year he hit 30, and even like going through my season preview numbers to start the year, I'm like, Blake Coleman had 30 goals last year? What? Like, I just didn't remember. And then I kind of look back at his career and I'm thinking, okay, he's generally kind of been in the 18 to 20 goal range, and he's got 13 to this point. For a team that's been starved to score goals, is his season a disappointment, or is this more just a regression to what our expectations should be for Blake Coleman?
Honestly, I think it's somewhere in the middle of that, which is probably the cop-out answer. One of the biggest things that Blake Coleman brings to this team is an ability to work on a line with younger players, guys who are easing their way into the lineup and finding some chemistry there. So it's not always a lot of numbers returns on what he brings to this team. There have been some gaps that seem uncharacteristic of Blake Coleman to me in more recent games. So it's certainly not been what they wanted. Matt Coronato is probably the only forward on this team who's above expectations at this point. You can maybe add Jonathan Huberdeau to that conversation.
But at that pay scale, Huberdeau should be at that level.
Absolutely. But I mean, after the last couple of games, he's starting to look into maybe that contract is tradable potentially one day. He's definitely going to get 30 goals this year. He's been heating up again recently. He's got 5 goals, 4 assists in his last 7 games, and that's coming off of a 6-game goal drought, which was the longest stretch without a goal for him this season. And that was on the kind of the back end of that gauntlet run after they beat Washington. He fell off the score sheet for a bit, but it's been heating up again, and he is leading the team with 6-game winning goals.
And his career high is 30, so this could be a new career high if he gets there.
It's crazy.
It's a new look Huberdeau, that's for sure.
27 goals in his first 160 games as a Calgary Flame. He's already got 27 in his first 69 games so far this season. Cami, 2 months ago, we were talking about, can the Flames stay alive? They have. Maybe in 2 weeks, we'll be having you back on to talk about playoff hockey in Calgary. Appreciate you popping in.
Hey, thanks. We'll see if those St. Louis games are the ones that come back to bite them in the end.
What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you need to be hitting the subscribe button right here at Daily Faceoff. Exclusive interviews and analysis from our hockey insider Frank Seravalli, fantasy updates from Brock Sagan, and a daily live show at noon Eastern Monday through Friday. You don't want to miss any of the fantastic content, so hit that subscribe button.